Hey folks, welcome to chapter 12. I don't think I've worked on anything with this many chapters before. So in this one we're going to head down to the trousers and we're going to do the lower body, and then we'll probably come to the extremities like the arms and the boots. The gloves and the boots. The trousers are going to be very easy to do, so we're going to do those next. Just going to turn off all the bits we don't need, sort of like the apron and such like that. Just going to go select the trousers, and then I'm going to turn the apron off, as well as the pouch. And in fact, I'm actually just going to press solo mode. Might as well. Cool. So we've got a fair amount of wrinkles and things in here already. I don't think I really checked myself while I was saying this is only going to be sort of quick detailing. Might need a little bit of tidy up here and there, but smoothing things back a little bit. It's not quite so over the top. So yeah, I don't really think I can add too much to that without going over the top as well. So right, let's start detailing this. So if we turn on polyframe, so we've got our individual polygroups that we created earlier. We're going to be using these to create a UV map so that we can once again just use the noise plugin to do the detailing. We're just going to sort of have a cloth weave on these, so it's going to be nice and simple. So first of all, let's sort out the UV map on these. I'm going to drop down to the lower subdivision level. So you can press Shift D on your keyboard. We're going to head up to UV Master and we're going to work on a clone. And if we turn on our polyframes, you'll see that we've got them divided up into very much sort of sections of thirds. This isn't going to work out well for our UV map, so let's just turn off perspective. We just want to basically cut them down the middle. So first of all, we're just going to hide this section and invert it. So Control Shift, click on a polygroup. Control Shift Alt, click on a polygroup, just to remove them. And we're going to hold down Control Shift and grab the lasso tool. Hold down Control Shift again, and we're just going to hide the rear part of the trousers, or pants, depending on where you're from. So not quite what I was after. Let's have a look, see the best place. This seems to be the central line down the center, so let's see how well we can do it. And we can tidy up a few bits and pieces quite easily, I reckon. So let's see what we can get rid of. Let's get rid of this section here. You can turn on symmetry to help you as well. I always forget to do these days. There we go. So basically, when we're sort of creating these UV seams by grouping them into different polygroups, we are basically laying down points where we want our seams to be on the mesh as well. So just imagine how well, just look at your jeans or something, whatever you're wearing. You'll always have a seam that goes all the way from the top all the way to the bottom, where it's two pieces of material stitched together at the sides. So just going to capitalize on that, and it works out as a perfect place to do our UV maps, because if we do end up with slight differences in the texturing, we'll end up being able to just explain it away saying, oh, it's a seam in the clothing. So it's a lot easier. Just inverted the selection after doing the group visible. Going to hide any parts that we don't want, like these sections down here. Going to press group visible again and unhide everything, and now we've got just our UV seams for the main part of the trousers. We're not bothered about the tops or the bottoms as we won't be seeing them, so that doesn't matter. I'm going to go back up to Z plugin, go to UV Master, make sure you got polygroups and symmetry selected, and we'll press unwrap. We'll flatten these, and this is how we get an interesting set of trousers. Not quite how I thought they'd unwrap, but I think it'll work. Can give it a try anyway. We can always reposition them ourselves, which I think will probably be better. So if we select the Move tool, press W on the keyboard, we're going to hold down Control for a mask and grab the mask lasso. And then we're just going to mask off one of the UV islands. That didn't work. Symmetry. Forgot symmetry works in the UV view. There we go. So just make sure we haven't got anything else selected there. It's all good. And now we can move these around much like we would be able to any other part of the geometry. The important thing is we get them facing the same way, as when the tiling happens for the bump map where we put the alpha on with the noise tool, we want the patterns to be going the same way. Just going to invert the selection, choose rotate. We don't want to affect the scale, otherwise it'll affect the scale of the tiling as well. So don't want that happening. Just make sure we've got everything within the bounds of the UV map. Oh, looks like we got missed a bit down here. Let's see if we can just smooth that back. Nope, just grab Move and just move this vertex into place if we're allowed to. There we go. So that should work, I think. Just get that put in the right position again. Just gonna Control, Shift and hide this polygroup if it will allow me in this view. Yeah, should do. We've really screwed things up over here, so let's just unflatten and then we'll press unwrap again. In fact, I'm going to turn off symmetry and see what happens. Press flatten again and it's exactly the same. Just going to hold Control Shift and click on this. We're not going to do any masking because it didn't work for us last time. Got some distortions. Just going to move that into position. Not even sure if this is going to work out too well for us either. So I'm going to hold down Control with the draw tool selected, and we're just going to modify this UV layout some. Just going to mask off this region here, invert the mask, and choose rotate. I'm actually going to turn on symmetry actually before I do that, and hopefully it'll work on the other side too. Yeah, just invert, soften the selection, and yeah, it's really not going to work out. Looks like we may have to do it per trouser leg, I think. So let's do that. Let's just go back to unflatten mode, turn on polyframes, and I'm just going to cut off essentially sort of like a region for boxer shorts. So this kind of region here, I think. Or hot pants, or whatever you prefer to call them. And then I'm going to go to polygroups and press group visible. And I'm going to hide the rear half, press group visible. And now we should have some trouser legs, which should unwrap flat for us. So let's try that. Let's turn on symmetry and do unwrap. We'll go to flatten. There we go. This may look a little bit worse than it did before, but it's actually quite a good thing. In draw mode, hold down Control and Shift, and we'll turn off symmetry first of all. Hold Control Shift and click on our polygroups, invert them. We're going to rotate these so that the top of the leg runs downwards. I'm not going to bother with masking, I'm just going to drag a lasso around this and remove it from our selection. So I'm going to rotate these around. Just move them out of the way for now. What's that down there? Huh, looks like we've got a bit of our looks like we've got a bit of the bottom of the trousers. So I'm just going to scale that up and move it out of the way for now. We really don't care about those sections, so it doesn't really matter. Let's just unmask everything and unhide everything. I'm going to do the same with these trouser legs down here. So Control Shift and click on them. Draw mode. We'll move these out to the side as well. Don't worry about operating within the UV space just yet. Just going to hide that one, just invert the selection. If I do it correctly, of course. And I want it so the top of the leg flows towards the bottom of the UV space. And I will give you a demonstration of why this is important as well. Let's just get them correct first of all, so I can just undo things if anything goes wrong. Oops. So that's fine. We've got this part, the hot pants section, which is correct. We just need to change this part so it follows the same direction. If you hold down Control Shift and just click on a UV shell with the transpose tool selected, it'll mask off all but the one you clicked, so that's really helpful. Never actually noticed that until now, unless it's part of the same polygroup. We may need to rescale these a little bit, but we'll see how we get on with these first of all. Let's just scale that down, because it's really not important. Leave that off to the side, as these sections really don't matter. The main thing is that we get all these lot within their UV bounds and to the same scale. So I'm just going to unmask everything, and then we're just going to mask the areas that we do want and invert the mask. And now we really want to be able to fit these all within the UV space without smushing them together too much and without reducing the scale too much as well. Just going to move these slightly further down to maximize some space. Let's just do that. So I can just draw a mask and do everything quite easily. Then I can invert the mask. Get them as close together as you can really, there's no need to worry about it too much. These aren't going to be our final UV maps, as the topology really isn't great as it is. It's great for sculpting, but wouldn't want to use it to animate. It's just far too dense in areas which don't need to be, so and it doesn't follow our surface all that well. So that's all in. It's good. If you do adjust the size, then you want to do it uniformly across the whole thing, across every single UV shell, except for parts that don't matter, like these. So all of these have to be scaled down with each other, otherwise we'll end up getting things which don't match up, and we don't want that. So that's all fine. Let's just move this down a little bit further. And let's just get these things in. Doesn't matter about the size and scale of these. Just want to stick them in somewhere so they don't take up too much room. But still want them to be inside UV map. There we go. Okay, so now if we just clear our mask and press unflatten, if we check our seams, you can click check seams here, you'll see that we get some lines down where the seams are. We can uncheck that, go to copy UVs, and we'll go to our trousers, and then we'll press paste UVs, and that'll inherit the UVs that we just copied. So let's show you exactly what I mean when things go wrong or don't work out as expected. If we jump down to our surface modifier and press noise, actually let's just do yes, noise, sorry, and then noise plug. Let's bring that window back over here, and then we're just going to choose where was it? Weave, and press OK on there. Find our trousers, take the scale down, play with the strength. Going to turn on UV, so it follows our surface. Click on edit actually, and let's do herringbone. Press OK. So you can start to see what I mean about seams here. If we zoom in, you can see that there are parts which don't match up entirely. It's because the UV map isn't perfect. If it was, it'd be following the same direction. However, if we press OK, let's just jump up our subdivision levels so we can see it on our some more final geometry. You can see that largely everything's okay. We'll put some seams around these areas anyway, just to cover up that area. But everything follows the right direction. But if I had some UVs like we had before, where if we go back to this UV, I'm just going to go work on clone again. Let's check our seams on there. So this is going to be the UVs that we just made, so they look nice. If we unflatten that. If we just ignore this and just press unwrap, and go to flatten, so that everything kind of follows. Actually, it's not too bad. Probably the wrong direction, but let's just deliberately screw this up a bit. If we had, say, this leg at a different sort of angle, just move that up there. And just move this down. Doesn't matter if it overlaps, so it's just a demo as to why it's kind of important. And if we press unflatten and do copy UVs, go back to these and press paste UVs. If we zoom in here, you'll see that we've got everything flowing in different directions. So this is all off, and this is sort of going around in different ways across the seams. Looks generally just a bit wrong kind of goes round in circles in a spiral rather than just straight up and straight down. So that's kind of the importance of laying out some decent UVs for this kind of thing. Let's make sure these are correct ones. Yep. Copy these UVs, go back over here and paste them. And everything follows a much more linear direction in terms of the pattern. It's not the best pattern to show it with, but it'll give you a bit of understanding as to how the surface modifier works when it's applied to a UV projection rather than just 2D or 3D projection rather. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Let's just go back to our normal matte cap. I'm going to see if we need any more resolution on these trousers just by pressing apply to mesh. Looks like we need a lot more resolution on them. So let's just subdivide a couple more times. Press apply to mesh. It's taking its time, so we must have a decent amount of resolution on there. There we go. Not perfect, but it'll do. How many polys we got on this? We've got 6 million. We don't really want to go any higher than that, so it's a little bit insane as it is. So there we go. Some detail on the trousers, probably more than we actually need. But let's go into solo mode and let's choose another seam. I think this one's usually quite decent. No, not that one. Let's try this one. Yeah, that'll do for trousers. Let's put the brush size up. It fits more with leather, I think. And double stitch. I think this one will work okay. Just turn the intensity up and make sure we've got our lazy radius on. Probably a little bit over the top in the intensity department, so let's just don't want to play with the focal shift, just want to take the intensity down. Probably the brush size as well. And just going to sort of slightly smooth out a path along these seams here. In fact, I'm going to remember to put symmetry on. In fact, I'm not, because it's not symmetrical on both sides, so it's pointless. So we're going to do it without symmetry. And just paint over this seam with the smooth brush, just to remove a bit of detail which doesn't need to be there, so it doesn't complicate our already fairly complicated seam brush. So massive thanks to Ryan Kinson for making those brushes. I use them quite a bit and they're fantastic. I've kind of lost track of where that seam is. I think it's just there. And we don't have to worry below the boot level. Let's just hide half of the trousers so I can see on the inside. On the inside leg. Didn't want to mask it, holding down the wrong button. It's going to invert the hidden items. What I thought it was anyway. It's a little bit sketchy at this sort of poly count when it comes to hiding bits and pieces. So the inside leg is a good example of where the seams actually line up really well, because you can't really see them at all. I'll do it. Let's just get both legs in, and we'll just do the final seam down this leg here. and using the same brush size, just going to draw this in. It's quite a nice smooth brush, this one. Doesn't seem to have any ridges or areas where the alpha sort of tiles too badly, so you don't get any sort of forget the word for it really. Don't get any roughness to the edges. There we go. Alright. So you can always add a few extra stitches at the front if you wanted to. You can add some flies or something if you want, but I don't think they had them back then. So there we go, some trousers, detailed and with stitches. So, let's move to the extremities now. We'll move on to the gloves. So let's start by selecting the gloves first of all. Just Alt and click on them to quick select them. That's just to make things a little bit quicker to rotate and things. I'm just going to lower the resolution of some of the other parts. So, in fact, all of the other parts, at least the visible ones anyway. If we go onto Z plugin and go onto Subtool Master, we can do low res visible, and that'll turn every visible subtool to its lowest resolution. So everything's a lot easier to navigate now, and we can just turn up the resolution on the bits and pieces that we actually need. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's find out what we're working with here. We've got 336,000 polys. So let's start adding a few bits and pieces. I think we're just going to go ahead and do some generic wrinkles on here. They're going to be quite soft gloves, perhaps. Maybe harder on the top than they are on the bottom. So let's add some surface detail. Let's grab our standard brush. We've still got our leathery skin selected from before. I want something a little bit finer than that. So let's see if I can find something. If not, I'll use what we've got. Got a slightly blurrier version. So let's go with that one. So with Z sub selected and our intensity up a bit more, let's just start dragging that on. Looks like we need some extra resolution. So let's just subdivide that. It's Control D on the keyboard. I think that'll give us enough, maybe. Let's see what we've got. 1.3 million. Yeah, that'll be fine. Just turn the intensity up a little bit more so we see a greater effect on it. Probably not that much. That'll do us fine. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this over large areas. It's probably a little bit much, I think. Let's do something a little bit finer. If we've got one. If we've got an alpha that does that. Let's try this. Maybe not. Let's try something with a bit more shape to it. And I'm not going to go over the top with the detail on these gloves, as they're going to be quite soft anyway. So I think I'm just going to dial that back. I'm going to drag the intensity down. I think I'm just going to go back to our original alpha that we had before. And just reduce the intensity some more. So again, leather's texture tends to be quite subtle on sort of hard leather anyway. And I think we'll go with sort of a hard leather on these two. Obviously they're going to be a bit more worn, a bit more supple than something like the apron. So this is mostly just for surface detail and to help us sort of paint textures on a little bit later on. And really we want to sort of come in and create our own wrinkles for the, sort of around the areas where you get the compression and such. So now we're at a higher subdivision level, we can go ahead and start adding those in. I'm just going to press solo mode so I don't get anything in the way while I'm doing this. I'm going to grab the the Damien standard brush and just going to start adding some much finer wrinkles in here. So in between the joints. Now it's still going to be quite thick leather, so the wrinkles are going to be quite large. They're not going to be super fine. So we can use a larger brush size for doing that, and we can also use the inflate brush to sort of add a few extra details in there too, to make it look like the wrinkles of the leather's bunched up a bit. Oops. So again, nothing special to what I'm doing here, just kind of carving in where I think some deeper wrinkles and smaller details might actually be beneficial. So just enhancing what we've got, adding a few little bits and pieces in. Might even knock back some of these wrinkles a bit too, so they're not quite so overbearing when viewed up close. Well, the leather texture I mean, not the wrinkles that we've just been putting in. Okay, so let's add a few seams in there. Let's turn off solo mode, Then we're going to put a seam down where these rivets sort of come down. So let's try and get one which looks like it's leather stitched together. I think the same one that we used on the trousers might work quite well. Slightly different one, and we don't have enough resolution. So let's jump it up one more time. And if we don't have enough res with this 5.3 million polys, then we'll never have enough resolution. That'll do fine. Let's just drag that down. And that seems a little bit too on the broad side for a pair of gloves. So let's try and find someone that's a little bit thinner. It's literally just stitching, isn't it? So let's try something like this. Yeah, it's the same one we used on the leather apron. So we use this one here as well. Let's just take that along the fingers. These areas can be a little bit problematic. Just had a seam around this edge as well. We've got the thumb put on there. Grab yourself some reference as well. I'm actually using my motorcycle glove as reference for these. So when you're passing a seam through an area, turn on transparency with ghost mode enabled. Ghost can be found underneath transform here. And I'll make sure that you're actually able to sculpt through the transparent geometry. I think that'll do it. I'll just put another seam in here just to add some more interest to quite a dull area. Mirror it slightly lower on the other side. Let's just get that lined up. And possibly around the top. Just because. There we go. And providing we had symmetry on. Yep, everything's on the other side as well. I think I might just add another seam just around here. There we go. Just adds a bit more interest to it. It's not totally functional, but sometimes things just look good. Cool, so that's the main part of the gloves done. Let's move on to this sort of wrist area here. Let's jump the resolution up. Don't know how high we went with it in the first place. 92,000 polys. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's just turn on dot mode and turn off the alpha on our standard brush. Let's just pop the Z add-on and the intensity up a bit. Let's just add a few wrinkles onto this because we never did that before. Turn lazy step down so we don't get any random sort of dots appearing. Turn the intensity down to compensate for more frequent applying of the dots. Cool. So, I think that'll do for the wrist strap there. Don't really want to go too over on the detail. Sometimes it's nice just to have a bit of a plain area between two quite highly detailed areas. So this kind of serves just to break up the surface of the glove. I don't think we'll be applying any sort of surface detail to it except for the wrinkles. And we'll see what we can do in the texturing to sort of make it look like something. So let's see about this little bit here. I think if I grab trim dynamic and if we just increase the subdivision levels, that'll smooth the edges out quite nicely for us. Yeah, I'm just going to beat this up a bit really. I'm just going to grab the trim dynamic brush, turn on lazy mouse, turn the radius up, and I'm just going to drag the trim dynamic brush around the edges. I'm not going to be keeping it perfect, so I want it to kind of look like it's taken a few knocks and bumps. This is going to give us a nice flat surface around the edges. And the more you go over it and sort of come off at different angles, the more sort of beaten the edges are going to look. We can enhance that using the mallet brush. I think it's mallet. If we go to our brush menu, not mallet, I think it might be, is it hammer? No, that's H polish. I think the mallet might be flatten actually. Oh no, it's in the light box, that's where it is. So we've gone to brushes, and if we go on to mallet, and we'll just do mallet fast and just tap the sides almost like you're using a mallet, and that'll create some dents for us. That's cool. Just smooth those out a bit on the face of it. Right. Make it look a little bit more battered. So you can see some of the side effects of this being a stereotypical cylinder. where it poles into the center, and we get the results appearing here. You can always smooth it down a bit with H polish. Just turn the intensity down, kind of flatten it out a bit more, just to get rid of that poling. And just tidy up a bit of the edge from where we smoothed it. Just add those sharp edges back in. Cool. So onto this, I think we're probably going to end up sculpting some sort of insignia. Have we got symmetry on? Nope, you don't. That's fine. We'll do the other one so it's asymmetrical. So, some sort of insignia. Let's have a quick look for some Nordic runes. Okay, I think some of these runes might be pretty cool. So being so he's a blacksmith, he works with fire and metal and things like that. I don't seem to see a rune for metal anywhere, but being as he uses fire and water for the quenching of his blades and things, I think we'll use fire on one of the emblems and then water on one of the others. So I'm just going to carve those in. So this is his left hand, so I think I'll put water on this one. Just going to flatten it out a tiny bit more, just to harden up the edges a bit. Didn't want it to look quite so battered. So let's grab the layer brush. I'm going to have the intensity up fairly high on this one, I think. I want it to be quite hard edged, so I'm going to select a hard edged alpha, alpha 14. Going to choose sub, and we're going to do the rune for water. I'm going to turn on lazy mouse, I think, just a bit. So let's direct up, a little bit across, and then down that way. Now it doesn't look like we've got enough resolution, so I'm just going to put the subdivision level up again. I think I'll go with a square alpha on it, just to get a hard edge at the top and sides. A bit more towards the centre, I think. Smooth it down. Yeah, really don't have enough polys there. So let's just jump it up again, see what we've got. 188,000, so yeah, gonna need a few more polys. Subdivide, subdivide. What we got? We've got 3 million. Cool. There we go. It's nice and smooth now. Awesome. Let's see if we can. It's not going to work on an area with that already done. So let's try and do it with a mask instead. So let's just go ahead and hold down Control. I'm going to switch to the mask pen, and I'm going to switch the alpha to the square alpha that I was using. And I'm just going to draw that on the surface. Oh, was that using a curve? Oh, mask curve pen. I just need mask pen. There we go. Just make sure the alpha's still on there. Just doing it that way allows us to sort of tidy it up a bit as well. Can add a sort of flat top to it. Tidy up the edge. Make it a bit thicker. We can invert the mask. Oops, didn't want to blur it, I want to invert it. So hold down Control and click in the background. And from here we'll get the layer brush and we'll just drag it over the top. Maybe a couple of times. It's losing a lot of resolution there, so first time's enough. Let's just drag off. And we've got quite a nice rune in there. Looks like it's been carved on. It's all good. Sort out the other side. So this needs a bit of beating up as well, so let's just grab the trim dynamic brush, just trim around the edge, a bit haphazardly. Don't think I'm going to batter it as much as I did the other one, because it went a bit over the top. Just enough to add a little bit of curvature to it. There we go. Cool, so the symbol for fire is basically one of the less than signs on the keyboard. So let's get our masking back. Reduce the brush size, get masking, and it looks like this. There we go. Doesn't need much work to tidy that mask up. Remember, hold down Alt to remove areas of the mask. There we go. Invert it. Get our layer brush. Scribble inside the mask. And deselect. There we go. So it goes right hand as fire and left hand as water. Something quite nice about that, I think. Cool. Nice asymmetrical detail anyway. Right, so that's the gloves. Let's see what else we can get done. I think we'll probably just do the boots next. In fact, I think I'll do the boots and the belt in the next chapter, as this is starting to get a little bit long. So I'm going to cut it short there and carry on the next chapter. Let's have a look how everything's turning out. Let's just turn on our apron. Go to Z plugin, Subtool Master, and then High Res Visible. So everything's starting to come together quite nicely, I think. Awesome. Go on ZBrush, what are you loading? You've already upscaled everything, there we go. Right, so we've got a nice bit of detail here and there. We're not going to do anything to these rivets. They'll only be showing up on a texture more than anything. They're not going to be physical geometry on the game mesh. The ones on the gloves will be, I imagine, but we don't need to do anything to them. They'll just be shiny. Cool. So let's join me in the next chapter, guys. We'll finish off the detailing. We'll do the boots and we'll do the belt, and I think that's pretty much it. I think we'll probably just add a little bit of surface detail to the tools on his chest, on his belly rather. Not too much, just a little bit. And then we'll be ready for texturing. So join me for doing that, guys, and I'll see you in a bit.